Invincible Mumu. By Han Jung-Wheolya. Chapter 91. Brothers. Part 1. The Heavenly Martial Arts Academy guards were escorting the procession with eyes that betrayed their tenseness. The procession was none other than the officials that were dispatched from the Imperial Palace. Since the Academy hadn't received any word that they were coming, they couldn't help but stay silent and uncomfortable at the sight of the Imperial officials. Whether they were conscious or not about the reaction of their hosts, Oumuyang, who was walking at the front, looked at a man who seemed to be in his late 20s. "This is quite a welcome." "Ha ha ha. How can you say that?" Oumuyang knew that this would be their reaction. For the Academy, the intervention of the palace wasn't pleasant. A member of the procession, Noakbong, looked around and asked, "I wondered if I would see any pretty female students, but I don't see a single one." "Well, it is still early. It is the time for them to eat and prepare for the day." The man answering was none other than Eugene Sung, who had been a student here in the past. "Ah, is that so?" Noakbong's voice was quite different from how he talked with Oumuyang. It seemed like there was a strained relationship there. Noakbong had officially entered through the general exam, which happened once every 4 years. In contrast, Eugene Sung entered 2 years earlier due to his privilege of attending this academy. So, for Noakbong, this man's existence was undesirable. "That is unfortunate. Look at this man. Are you sad you don't see any female students?" Noakbong smiled at Oumuyang's words. "It is what it is. Where in the world is a man who doesn't like beauty and sensuality?" Well, there are people like him." Noakbong glanced at Eugene Sung and smiled. As if used to such comments, Eugene Sung didn't even give a reaction. And this stimulated Noakbong even more. "Well, beauty is a joke, but I was curious to know what the level of the students here are like." "What can you be so curious about? Don't we already have one on our side?" Oumuyang pointed to Eugene Sung with his head, and Noakbong smiled and said, "One person's skills do not represent the entire academy. Everywhere you go, there are bound to be people who are weak." At his words, Oumuyang smiled. Quite a few people denied the greatness of the Heavenly Martial Arts Academy in the palace and offices. Noakbong was one of them. I guess I wasn't warned about Noakbong for nothing. Usually, an investigation requires just one supervisor and one inspector. However, Noakbong was suddenly added as a supervisor while he was instructed to do something else. Maybe they are trying to observe how things are being done around here. In the wake of the incident 17 years ago, the Imperial Palace also made its own academy and trained numerous people in secret. Although only a few people knew about it, Noakbong resulted from that secret program. Noakbong continued to provoke Eugene Sung even after becoming an inspector, but there was no real friction between them. It was because Eugene Sung was smart enough to not fall for Noakbong's provocations. However, it was their first time working together, so Oumuyang was unsure how this would end. Come to think of it, aren't your younger brother's students here?" At those words, Eugene Sung's expression changed slightly. Seeing this, Noakbong smiled. No matter how emotionless one tried to look, they could not stay like that when it came to blood. In the office room in the main building of the academy, the headmaster, Du Zhongmyang, and deputy, Dan Pilhu, were seated side by side. On the other side were Supervisor Oumuyang and Royal Inspector Eugene Sung. They had already greeted them at the entrance, so they knew who they were. Unlike when they met outside, the atmosphere in the room was quite heavy. They arrived quite quickly. Deputy Dan Pilhu clicked his tongue. He heard from Du Zhongmyang that an investigator would come from the Imperial Palace's inspectorate, but this was too fast. It was as if they had been sent to intervene with their own investigation. Are they looking for flaws? Their purpose was obvious. Although the previous emperor had recognized the contribution of the Southern Blade Emperor and the Academy, many people within the palace didn't like it. There were several occasions when they argued that the Academy should be below the palace and not on par. It is like trying to find a cause. Would they ever get a chance to conduct an investigation? Or would they prioritize finding faults and justifications to intervene? It will be known for sure from this conversation. Du Zhongmyang looked at Yu Jinsung. They were clever. They had sent this man. And the intent of the palace was clear. If it was a normal minor accident, it would have been nice to see Yu Jinsung, who had graduated from here. But this case was simply too large. If this child is put on the case, the investigation should go without being biased, but if the investigation is even a little biased towards the academy, the backlash will be significant. Dan Pilhu, who glanced at Du Zhongmyang, exhaled. Both had roughly grasped the situation. The reason Yu Jinsung was sent here wasn't due to his name or skills but to create a justification that the palace should not hire students from the academy as they would be biased toward it. Well, they did use their heads nicely. The palace intended to use this crisis in the academy as a political tool. Dan Pilhu then tried to talk. Supervisor. We exchanged greetings before, and this isn't an expected situation, right? Oumuyang looked at him and said this, leaving Dan Pilhu feeling puzzled. Supervisor, what do you mean by that? I don't know what happened, but before leaving the palace, I heard that the deputy was imprisoned for the accident. Dan Pilhu frowned. Was a spy from the palace planted here? Until yesterday, he had been imprisoned, but he answered with a smile. Right. But the charges were dropped. And? No, how could the charges be lifted overnight? And even if they were lifted, how can the accused even be cooperating with the investigation? What do you mean? Oumuyang glanced to the side at the question. Yu Jinsung expressed a bit of shock and said, in an investigation, those who have been accused in the case would be deprived of their authority to join in the process. But the charges were cleared? Even so, for the sake of a fair investigation, it is right to exclude the deputy. Dan Pilhu's expression gradually changed. Of course, these people weren't wrong, but they were saying that they didn't want him to join the investigation. This was their attempt to weaken the academy's authority. At that moment, Du Zhongmyang said, but supervisor. This is not the inspectorate. That was a firm counter. He couldn't just hand over the initiative of the investigation to these people. As if he had been waiting for that response, Oumuyang said. If we proceed with the investigation this way, it seems like the academy's management would allow anyone who has been cleared of any charges to intervene. Can we call it a fair investigation then? How can you? Strictly speaking, there are many spies in the academy. We are suspicious of everyone in the academy, including the both of you. However, if you ask for one with previous charges to be involved, I don't know what your intention is to make such a request. Du Zhongmyang frowned. This is how you come out with your intentions? This was no collaborative effort but instead was an attempt to push the academy out of its own authority to investigate. Then Oumuyang smiled. This is something I always do. As thought by the headmaster, Oumuyang was never planning to cooperate with the academy. And getting to this point wasn't difficult either. He thought it was already over when Deputy Dan Pilhu, who had been previously charged, was brought for this meeting. Oumuyang smiled. I want to see if the two of you agree with this. If so, for a proper investigation. At that time, Dan Pilhu cut off his words. What do we do about this? The investigation is no longer needed. What? We already caught the man behind the arson. At those words, Oumuyang seemed a bit shocked. What was this now? In order to secure their rights to investigate, they raced down from the palace within 2 days. But the academy already caught the man behind the crime? At those words, Yu Jinsung asked with a bright face. Is that true, deputy? Yes. We have detained him and secured evidence that he was behind the arson. We can show you if you want. At those words, Oumuyang's face darkened. This was unexpected. Thank God. The longer the case goes, the harder it gets to catch the one behind it. On the other hand, Yu Jinsung was happy. He also thought there could be a political conflict due to this case, so he had thought hard about how to handle the situation. so he was glad this was resolved. But how did you catch the culprit? At those words, the academy heads went silent. They were hesitant to reveal this. However, Du Zhongmiang revealed it. A student caught him. At those words, Yu Jinsung looked confused. The person in charge of the murder of Elder Hang Yan and the one behind the arson had been caught by a student? Oh, Muyang didn't miss this chance. Does it make sense for a student to catch them? Even Elder Hang Yan was known to have been taken down by the same man, right? Right. And such a strong person who killed the elder was taken down by a student who would be nothing more than an ant to the culprit. At this, Yu Jinsung couldn't even choose a side. Oh, Muyang was an expert when it came to finding loopholes, so he knew how skilled Elder Hang Yan was. Except for Mak Chanen, who was known to be the best in the academy, no one else could deal with the elder. So a student handling the culprit was nonsense. Inspector Yu, what do you think? Is that possible? Yu Jinsung didn't answer. If he said no, they were back to the start with the debate on who would investigate the case. And if he said it was possible, then it would mean that they wasted their time and energy by coming all the way here. Worse, he could be accused of being biased toward the academy. He was in a dilemma. Dan Pilhu smiled and said, "Supervisor, why not check it yourself if you doubt it?" Check it? The student here isn't a stranger but is one who is known to Yu Jinsung here. At that, Oh Muyang frowned. What does that mean? That student is the adopted child of the Yu family, Yu Mumu. Mumu came to meet the deputy. However, Mumu was worried because the deputy was also talking with some guests. Would it be better to let him know now, or would coming back at a later time be better? Today's classes started in the afternoon, so he had time. While he was thinking, someone called him. Hey. Mumu looked around but could find no one. Me? Yes. You. Mumu looked around. A person was sitting on the stairs wearing an official's clothes. It was Noak Bong. A meeting was happening, so he had nothing else to do but wait on the stairs. So while he was looking around the building, he came across Mumu. Now I see a student. He had been meaning to meet a student here. He was curious about the level of skills they had, so he thought a student coming here was a good chance. You're a student here? Mumu nodded his head. Yes, why? Noak Bong smiled at Mumu's reply. He thought this would be fun. He heard that students here had high academic abilities. However, looking at this student, he only looked like a second-rate warrior. Just this much? He wanted to laugh. If most students were of this level, then the palace wouldn't need the academy to give them good students to employ. There is no need to deal with a guy who is just a second-rate warrior. Noak Bong thought this and waved his hand. Go. Mumu then tried to head down the stairs and make his way, but a guard came and found him instead. Student Yu Mumu? Yes. Noak Bong's eyes shone at his name. Yu Mumu? There was no way he wouldn't recognize this name. He knew all about Yu Jinsung's family. Even if it hadn't been useful, he thought this information would help when provoking Yu Jinsung. The guard then continued. Come to the 5th floor office. The deputy is looking for you. Deputy? Right. I was coming to look for you. Thank God I found you. The guard then went upstairs. What was this? When Mumu tried to go up, Noak Bong blocked his path. Mumu tried to go from the other side, but he was again stopped. I need to pass by. At Mumu's words, Noak Bong smiled. Yu Mumu, was it? Yes? You would be Yu Jinsung's younger brother? You know Yu Jinsung Hyung, brother? That's right. I know him very well. With that, he put his hand on Mumu's right shoulder. If I make this guy's arm useless for the rest of his life, then Yu Jinsung's crumbling expression would be a treat to watch. Clench. Noak Bong raised his internal energy, grabbed Mumu's right shoulder, and tried to break it. When he attempted to do so, however... What? Why are the muscles this thick? He is only a kid at the second-rate warrior level, so how does he have such thick shoulders? No, they were tough to even move. Mumu tilted his head and asked, "Why are you rubbing my shoulder?" Chapter 92. Brothers. Part 2. Noakbong was a regular inspector of the 7th unit. Although a member of the unit, he also had a hidden position. In the Imperial Palace, there were 5 organizations which had been secretly nurtured and were tightly handled by the palace. He was part of one of those secret groups. There are some common characteristics of warriors raised in the Imperial Palace. One was their internal energy. Internal energy is one thing that the warriors of the palace excel in. Although the Imperial Palace nurtured warriors who mastered martial arts, they knew they wouldn't be able to keep up with the warriors of the Central Plains who had studied it from a young age. Those people inherited and developed their martial arts, so the palace had to think of a different way to nurture and strengthen their own warriors. So the palace, with its physicians, had secured many pills and herbs that enhanced internal energy and used them to train the warriors and give them strength. As a result, most of the warriors in the palace had internal energy equivalent to around 30 years' worth. What is this? Noakbong couldn't understand it. He was one of the 3 heads of the Imperial Palace's secret warriors. In order to become a head, one had to have internal energy of at least 40 years. You aren't feeling pain? Where? At Mumu's words, Noakbong's face contorted. You second-rate bastard. A second-rate warrior only had around 10 years' worth of internal energy. This child only had to be about 17. How dare he try to mock Noakbong? Noakbong, full of anger, increased the internal energy he used. I thought this would be enough, but you made me angry. Noakbong raised his energy 6-fold in an instant. His clothes and hair began to flutter as he did this, as he was determined to break Mumu's shoulder. Clench. Mumu had thick muscles, but that didn't matter. He was going to twist that arm and break his bones. But... Kuuk. What? Noakbong looked stunned. Despite increasing the internal energy he used, Mumu's thick shoulders didn't move. Did this boy only learn physical training? How could he withstand the 7th level of internal energy being used on his shoulder? Mumu, who didn't understand what was happening, said, "Seeing how you are using your internal energy, you don't seem to just be rubbing." Noakbong frowned. What was this kid saying? He was trying to break the boy's shoulder, but the boy thought he was just rubbing his shoulder? Then Mumu said, "Is this what they call picking a fight?" What? Who was this bastard who was thinking that a palace official was just some neighborhood thug? Noakbong, who wanted to do this in moderation, decided to kick Mumu on the leg. But nothing happened. It was because the guard came down again. What are you doing? TCH. At the guard's question, Noakbong pulled back his leg. He then erased his expression and replied with a smile. Nothing. The guard looked at Noakbong with wary eyes. No matter how he looked, it felt like the two had been arguing. Noakbong shrugged and whispered in Mumu's ear as he pulled back his hand. Kid. You are lucky. Lucky? Mumu tilted his head. Cheeky bastard. Unfortunately, he couldn't do what he wanted, but he memorized that face. Noakbong began to move when the guard said, Are you Noakbong? Yes? That is right. The supervisor, the old man, is calling you. Okay? At those words, he looked at Mumu, and his sullen face turned to a happy one. Maybe you aren't that lucky anymore. Mumu? Eugene Sung's expression wasn't very good as he waited. He knew about the ambitious Dan Pilhu, the deputy, and he also knew that the headmaster wasn't the type to lie. However, it was hard to believe that Mumu was the one who caught the culprit behind Elder Hang Yun's murder. I heard he grew up with father. His father, Yu Yip Kyung, wasn't a martial arts man but a scholar. And it was his other younger brother, Eugene Hyuk, who was taught by 3 martial arts masters, whom Eugene Sung had arranged to grow up with martial arts and not Mumu. Mumu grew up in an environment where he couldn't learn any martial arts. I thought just joining the academy was strange. He couldn't even understand how Mumu passed the academy entrance test. There was no way the two who were saying things about his adopted brother couldn't be believed, but it felt unsettling. Tack. There was a knock on the door, and the guard's voice echoed from outside. "I have brought them, sir. Let them in." Soon after, Mumu came inside the room. Mumu saw the headmaster and deputy sitting inside and bowed to them. "Hello. Headmaster, deputy." Seeing how innocent he looked, Oumyang smiled. "Is this that rumored student?" Since the academy heads were proud of this child, he thought the student would be sharp and smart, but this was something else. This boy didn't look like the bloodthirsty sort. And it didn't end there. Yu Jinsung sensed Mumu's energy and was shocked. No matter how much he tried to sense deeper, it felt like the energy of a second-rate warrior. Is the deputy trying to use him? Yu Jinsung looked away from Mumu and at the deputy with disappointed eyes. It seemed that he was trying to use Mumu, a student. Oumyang seemed to have thought he could test him, which would be enough. As a scholar, he didn't know much about martial arts. Mumu is my younger brother, so did he expect me to take his side? It was as if Mumu was being held as a hostage. If it was Dan Pilhu, the deputy he knew during his time in the academy, then it seemed like he would act like this using tricks. But there was something they didn't know. Noikbong came behind Mumu. He came. Oumyang wasn't a supervisor for no reason. He was someone who got this position by stepping on numerous obstacles, so he was at least intelligent. He could see Yu Jinsung looking at the headmaster and deputy. It seems that things were not going well. But contrary to his guess. No. What is this? The headmaster and the deputy were also flustered by the current situation, but for a wholly different reason. In just one day? They were surprised because of the change in Mumu's state. Just yesterday, Mumu had a small danti on. Even the headmaster who wanted to take him hadn't thought of being able to train the boy with anything special. But now, things have changed overnight. A second-rate warrior's level? That too in just one night? Just yesterday, they could barely feel anything from Mumu, but he had developed so much internal energy overnight. It was understandable if it was just his dantian that grew, but the internal energy also grew. The problem wasn't even that. I was learning martial arts as just a hobby. He was so confident in his physical strength that he occasionally looked down on martial arts. Headmaster Du Zhongmiang gulped. The pace of this boy's development in martial arts, even just as a hobby, was terrifying. What a monster. People said that the god of martial arts had a character that never gave his blessings to anyone. However, seeing Mumu, there seemed to be an exception. As the headmaster and deputy dealt with their surprise. Sir No is here? Sir No? Dan Pilhu looked at the other man who came behind Mumu. At that, Oumyang smiled. I didn't talk about it earlier. The arson in the academy is such a serious issue, so 2 inspectors were dispatched. This meant there were 2 high-ranking inspectors. Noikbong bowed. I am Noikbong. If you thought Yu Jinsung was the only inspector, then you are wrong. Oumyang looked at the headmaster and the deputy with elation in his eyes. They had to be upset with this. They must have known that Yu Jinsung might be biased in this case. Then Oumyang said to Noikbong. There is a reason I called you here. What do you mean? They say that the academy student in front of you was the one who caught the culprit behind the fires and murders. This kid? Noikbong frowned. As he came here, he heard that the man behind the murder of Heng Yun and the arson attempt had been caught. But this boy caught him? No way. That was not making any sense. While it seemed that this kid's body was better than his internal energy, it didn't mean he would be capable of defeating a very strong martial artist. A 17-year-old kid caught such a strong person? Ha ha ha. I guess you are curious too. So, if you don't believe it, the headmaster and deputy said it was fine to test the student. What do you mean? Can you test that child there? Noakbong's eyes twitched at those words. He felt that his being called had something to do with Mumu. Noakbong smiled, and then he looked at Eugene Sung. Eugene Sung then bowed to Omuyang. Supervisor. What is it? I am here for the palace, so it is only today that I met my younger brother Mumu for the first time. So I want you to give me a chance to test my brother. Eugene Sung finally came forward, thinking this had to stop. If it was Noakbong, then he knew that Mumu could be seriously injured, considering he was still just a second-rate warrior. But then Omuyang shook his head. Can I even do that? Strictly speaking, this is to make sure that the academy student here actually has the skills to catch the criminal. I would be fair. I believe in you, but this investigation was ordered to us directly by the Minister of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and all the other higher officials. I cannot act easily. At that, Eugene Sung went silent. He had nothing to say. He felt angry inside that the second brother he was seeing for the first time today was being placed in danger by the academy heads, but he could do nothing. If not, I'll need to get involved along the way. If it was proven that Mumu's skills were insufficient, Eugene Sung thought that he would be able to intervene before Noakbong did anything too serious. Omuyang then smiled at Mumu. You said you caught the culprit? Then show us your skills. At those words, Mumu looked at Du Zhongmiang and Dan Pilhu with puzzled faces. Then Dan Pilhu said, I am sorry to suddenly call on you, but I hope you can show your skills to these people here. At that, Omuyang shook his head. The result was already clear to him. Omuyang gestured Noakbong. The gesture communicated an order to not be too moderate in the testing. Noakbong then smiled. I think the same. He didn't even want to go easy at all. Although the boy was just second class, he had confirmed that he had a degree of physical strength, so he was planning to go strong from the start. How would Eugene Sung's face become when he realized his brother ended up half-blind? Will that calm face change? I am so excited. Noakbong made some distance from Mumu at the order. Mumu then brought his left hand to his band. Do I do it full on? At that, Dan Pilhu answered. Only moderately, please. Moderately, my ass. Noakbong laughed at their conversation. It didn't matter what they did. He knew Mumu had no internal energy and that he could destroy him if he went in strong right away. Now, shall we begin? As soon as the words were uttered, Noakbong threw himself at Mumu. It was a move meant to take him down without giving him time to respond. You are out of luck. Kid. Chuck. The moment he moved, Mumu's hand slapped his face. At the time of impact, Noakbong's left cheek caved in, and broken teeth came out of his mouth. What is tea? When did he get hit? Why was this happening? Why was the room spinning? Thud. Noakbong fainted. At that sight, Eugene Sung and even Omuyang were shocked. At the same time as the bout started, Mumu slapped Noakbong. It looked like a light slap, but his opponent's body spun 6 times in the air before falling down. Mumu looked at Noakbong and said, I did it lightly, but this happened. He isn't dead, right? Chapter 93. Brothers. Part 3. We asked him to do it in moderation. Noakbong went down after one slap. Huh? He is breathing, right? Mumu shook Noakbong's body, but the fallen man didn't come to his senses. This ignorant monster always showed a new side each time. Although just for a moment, Dan Pilhu could see Noakbong's strength. It would be no exaggeration to say that he was someone who would be equal to the higher-ranked teachers in the academy. And he was taken down like that. Even with that power, you are no match to the kid who took down Hang Yun's killer. Anyway, this was enough evidence. Dan Pilhu looked at Omuyang and smiled. Supervisor? Will you believe me now? Omuyang sighed at those words. The justification that they would have to remove the Academy's people from the investigation had disappeared. Ugh. Noak Bong got up after opening his eyes. When was the last time he was laid on a bed with a blanket on him? Noak Bong gulped and bit his tongue as he felt the pain in his mouth. Ugh. The inside of his entire mouth was covered in scars, and licking around caused pain. Even more bizarre was the lack of teeth inside. His teeth seemed to be broken in various spots. This. He was shocked. He then touched his strange-feeling face and noted that the left side was swollen. And he could only think of one thing. Slap. It was the scene of being slapped in the face and the feeling of his head flying away. What was that guy? Unlike his internal energy, which was clearly just second-rate, the boy did something impossible. Noak Bong thought he could take down the kid in one attack, but the result was anything but. Must have been a huge shock. Noak Bong looked around, bewildered at the voice which rang in his ears. On the chair near the window was Omuyang, who had a cup of tea in his hands. A warrior like you didn't even realize I was here. Supervisor. At those words, Noak Bong could say nothing. What happened was beyond common sense. After consuming many pills and herbs alongside the palace's education, he had reached his current level, so this result was shocking to him. How did he end up like this from a mere 17-year-old boy? Omuyang placed the teacup on the table. Even if you fight again, there is no way you would win, right? I am sorry. He couldn't give an excuse. Even if they fought again, the result was obvious. That Mumu guy was a monster that even his brother, Eugene-sung, looked like nothing in comparison. Right. Then, how will the investigation proceed? At Noak Bong's question, Omuyang shrugged and said, now that the criminal is caught, the Academy issue is already cleared. This is contrary to what we wished. Omuyang had been given one order. It was to create an excuse to control the Academy. However, since the criminal was already caught, the cause to fuss over it had vanished. I am sorry. If I had overpowered. Well, it is fine. The students in the Academy are safe, but the transfer of the Academy control to the palace itself would have been nice. At Omuyang's words, Noak Bong frowned. Wasn't that their purpose? If the palace controlled the Academy, they could further develop that influence as a cause to control the warriors. Omuyang went through the bag he was carrying and pulled something out as he continued to talk. What mission was given to you by the Imperial Palace's hidden troops? A casual question. Noak Bong's eyes fluttered as the question registered in his brain. How did this man know that he belonged to the hidden troops? While he was still shocked, Omuyang brought something out and placed it near his stomach. An push. Golden Gate Chain? The Golden Gate Chain was used to restrain the body of a person who had learned martial arts. It is said that if the Golden Gate Chain was used, then internal energy would become blocked. Noak Bong could not hide his shock at both what just happened as well as the energy that was emanating from Omuyang. Why you learned martial arts? Omuyang got up from his seat and approached Noak Bong while his strong energy rose. I don't remember saying I never learned it. Noak Bong, who sensed something ominous happening, tried to get up, but Omuyang stood before him and gently pressed down on his chest. With a light press, Noak Bong fell back on the bed. Everything happening was beyond his comprehension. The main building's garden. Eugene-sung and Mumu were sitting side by side at a place with fresh grass. The atmosphere was quite awkward, and Eugene-sung spoke first. To meet in such a place is quite commendable. He was the one who wanted to meet Mumu at home and not at the Academy. An adopted son that his father picked up during exile. Eugene-sung had wondered a lot about that. Mumu said to Eugene-sung, "You look a lot like Jin Hyuk." Eugene-sung was someone who was both more virtuous and manly than his appearance indicated, but he did resemble Eugene Hyuk a lot. It was as if he was an older version of Jin Hyuk. Eugene-sung then smiled and responded, "That's because we are brothers." "Brothers, right. Right. They were brothers, so looking alike was natural. But Mumu felt strange. It was the same feeling he felt when he met the family of his adopted father. In response to Mumu's reaction, Eugene-sung gently placed his hand on Mumu's head. Even if we don't look alike, you are my brother. Even if we don't share blood, our father raised you, and that relationship has been passed down to all the family members. Relationship? Right. I haven't lived as long as my father has, but it seems that the bonds of love cannot be easily broken. So our relationship as brothers will stay until we die. With that, he patted Mumu on the head, making Mumu smile brightly. His father, Jin Hyuk and Jin Sung now, were all good people. Ah. Right. Jin Sung pulled something from his sleeve. It was an ornament made of jade in the shape of a hawk. However, it wasn't just one but two. What is this? There are skilled craftsmen in the capital. When I came to see you and Jin Hyuk, I decided to bring this. Along with those words, Jin Sung showed all three ornaments, one attached to his waist and the two in his hand. All three were identical. I have one too. If you, Jin Hyuk, and I share them, wouldn't it be a symbol of our brotherhood? Mumu's eyes shone at those words. It was the first time someone other than his father had given him a gift. Symbol of our brotherhood. Quite a deep meaning. Mumu nodded and accepted them. Thank you. There is no need to say that to brothers. Rather, I am happy. I always wanted to say thank you when I meet you. Mumu was puzzled. Brothers don't thank each other? No, you were by our father's side during his toughest time. But, father raised me. That is true. But it was you who kept father sane in his exile. Thanks to you, I could clear my father's name. This was why Jin Sung felt grateful to Mumu. And now, he was grateful that he was by Jin Hyuk's side. He had learned of Mumu's strength and how it had helped Jin Hyuk and the other students stay safe during the arson attempt. Ah, seriously. Mumu scratched his head as he felt shy and said. Ah. Rather than this, would you like to come to the dorm to see Jin Hyuk? Jin Hyuk? To give him the symbol of brotherhood. At that, Jin Sung thought. He initially had no intention of meeting his brother while the investigation was underway. However, after checking Noak Bong's condition and the fact that the criminal had been caught, there was no reason not to go. Good. But Jin Sung, who was about to say something, looked elsewhere. He had looked over because he spotted a woman with silver hair standing a bit further away. His eyes shone when he saw her. Master Dan Baekhyun. A face he hadn't seen for so long. It was nice to see her, but something felt strange about her appearance. With a tree in front of her, she kept moving and glancing over to this side. And it didn't take long to realize that she was looking at Mumu, not him. What is this? The restless expression she was looking at Mumu with made her title sound like a lie. She was looking at Mumu for so long that she didn't even recognize the student who had returned after a long time. Master Dan Baekhyun? Mumu too noticed her. Jin Sung, who was looking at Mumu and the master, smiled. I think that I should go alone to see Jin Hyuk. Why? Seems like Master Dan Baekhyun has something to say to you. I will go first, so talk and come. With that, Jin Sung used footwork to head to the dorm. He was so fast that he soon could not be seen. When Jin Sung disappeared, Mumu approached Dan Baekhyun, who was walking around the tree. As he came closer, Dan Baekhyun began to walk faster around the tree. Master? She was startled at Mumu's call. Student Mumu. What are you doing? Dan Baekhyun licked her lips at Mumu's question, placed her hand on the tree, and said. I was just honing my skills. Here? As Mumu tilted his head, Dan Baekhyun was turning red. She tried to not be conscious of his face, but she couldn't look at Mumu. What is this? Actually, she wanted to thank Mumu for what happened before. However, the arson incident happened, and the teachers and staff were asked to stay in the main building. She had been unable to approach him due to all the reports the staff was asked to write. And now that she had time, she came for Mumu, but her heart kept pounding. I just wanted to say thank you. The flowers he had brought were filling the window in her lab. She wanted to thank him, but her lips wouldn't open. Mumu scratched his head and said, "Ah. I guess I misunderstood. I thought you had something to say. Please continue your training. I will go." "Wait." As Mumu was about to go, she grabbed his sleeve. And Mumu turned his head. And looking at Mumu, it felt like her face was heating up. "What is it? How old are you?" After saying that, Dan Baekhyun flinched, and her body turned stiff. What did she just say?